I'm David Carter, Speaker of the House and member for Calgary-Egmont. After question period today, the House will be dealing with written questions and motions for return. Following that, if there is time before 4:30, the House will discuss a motion as proposed by the member for Edmonton Centre dealing with quality healthcare services in the province. At 4:30, the House will then deal with Bill 209, an act to provide for equal pay for work of equal value, as sponsored by the member for Edmonton-Avonmore. This evening, the House will sit at 8 o'clock, dealing with second readings. At the moment, there are about 15 bills to be discussed at this second reading stage. The House may well be sitting until midnight this evening, dealing with appropriation bills.
Mr. Speaker.
Let us pray. Our Father, we confidently ask for your strength and encouragement in our service of you through our service of others. We ask for your gift of wisdom to guide us in making good laws and making good decisions for the present and the future of Alberta. Amen.
Introduction of visitors.
Deputy Premier.
It is my pleasure to introduce to you, and through you to members of this Assembly, His Excellency Jean-François de Liebkirk, Ambassador of Belgium, Countess Elizabeth de Liebkirk, and Bill Henning, the Honorary Consul of Belgium, who are seated in your gallery. His Excellency is on his farewell visit, and Albertans have appreciated his efforts made in developing closer ties between Alberta and Belgium, in particular with regard to technological cooperation. I would ask them to rise and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly.
Presenting petitions. Reading and receiving petitions. Presenting reports by standing and special committees. Notices of motions. Introduction of bills. Tabling returns and reports. Introduction of special guests.
Minister of Consumer and Corporate Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Honourable Member for Calgary West and the Minister of Labour, I'm very pleased to introduce to you and to members of the Assembly 82 students, parents, and teachers from A.E. Cross School in Calgary. They're visiting us today. The teachers are Mrs. Kaxmar, Mr. Ady, Mrs. Arbuckle, Miss Hughes, Mr. Milland, and the parents, Mrs. McAmmond, Mrs. Buchanan, and Mrs. Kendrick. They're in both galleries, and I would ask them to rise and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly.
Minister of Agriculture, followed by Red Deer North.
Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure today to introduce to you and through you to members of the Assembly 3 executive members from the Alberta Feeders Association. Present in the members gallery is Mr. Bob O'Brien from Barrhead, Alberta, who serves as president, Mr. Alan Fraser, vice president from Bath, Alberta, and Vern Batke, director from Bonnyville, Alberta. I'd ask that they stand and receive the recognition of the Assembly.
Red Deer North.
As our Premier is in Ottawa on some very important discussions about the future of our country. I have the honor of making a representation and introduction on his behalf today, and it's a group of students from the Gus Wetter School. There's 24 of them, Mr. Speaker, sitting in the members' gallery with their teacher, Wendy Dunkel, and parents David Holloway, Sandy Perot, Arlene Goring, and their bus driver, Walter Turnbull. I'd like them to know the Premier sends his special regards and would like them to stand and receive the warm welcome of this assembly.
Lacombe, followed by Edmonton Glengarry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a pleasure to introduce to you and through you to the members of this legislature 25 members of the Mount Elizabeth Secondary School Band all the way from Kitimat, BC. Mr. Speaker, they're accompanied by teacher Albert Townsend, parents Louise West, Carolyn O'Neill, and also Chris Endon. Mr. Speaker, they played yesterday in the Provincial Music Festival at Red Deer and are presently at the University of Alberta, and will do some training there for the balance of the week, so we'll extend a welcome to them. They're seated in the public gallery, and I'd ask them to rise and receive the traditional welcome of the Assembly.
Edmonton Glengarry.
Speaker, it's my pleasure to introduce to you and to members of this Assembly 9 students from Cardinal Leger Junior High School, school in my constituency, and their teacher, Mr. Bartoszewski. These 9 students are the executive members of the Students' Union of Cardinal Leger, and I would ask that they stand and receive the warm welcome of this Assembly.
Member for Edmonton Goldbar, followed by Red Deer North.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to introduce to you and through you to members of the Legislative Assembly 2 participants under the Quebec-Alberta Exchange Program through the Department of Career Development who are with us, Natalie Pion and Julie Carrier. They're in the public gallery, I believe, and I'd ask them to rise and be welcomed by the House.
Red Deer North.
Mr. Speaker, pleased to introduce to you 4 representatives of a group of seniors I met with just 2 nights ago in Red Deer discussing Meech Lake and other things, and they're here in the Assembly today to see democracy at work in Alberta. They are Richard and Muriel Schmaltz, Laura and Lyle Preston, representing that particular group. I'd ask them to stand and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly.
Ministerial statements. Oral question period.
Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, to the Minister of Environment. Mr. Speaker, the Environment Minister is at it again. Mr. Speaker, he's just bound and determined to give away the store when it comes to Alberta's environment, Mr. Speaker. I want you to figure this one out. The government announced that it's going to put together a high-powered group of advisors on the environment and the economy of Alberta. Mr. Speaker, okay, but probably nothing more than a public relations exercise, knowing this government's record on the environment. But, Mr. Speaker, hope springs eternal. It may have also had the potential to make a valuable contribution to policy making in the province. Mr. Speaker, it's painfully obvious that this government needs some help. Mr. Speaker, but the announcement yesterday proves that this government is completely out to lunch when it comes to dealing with the environment. And my question to the minister is this: can the Minister of Environment explain why only 1 out of the 22 people on the advisory board is an environmental activist?
Well, Mr. Speaker, indeed, all 25 members of the environment, or the roundtable on the environment of the economy, are environmentalists. They have an appreciation, Mr. Speaker, they have an appreciation for clean water and clean air and clean land. And you know what, Mr. Speaker? They aren't politically motivated like these people over there.
Mr. Speaker, the Buffoon Act is wearing thin. Mr. Speaker, Albertans want some decent environmental laws.
Here, here.
Now, Mr. Speaker, if I go through these people, at least eight of them represent the corporate sector, Mr. Speaker. 8 of them. 1 on the environmental group, Mr. Speaker. What type of fairness is that, Mr. Speaker? And I want to say then, to give the Minister of Environment one more chance. There's still time to make some changes. Will the Minister of Environment admit that this is a farce and make sure at least 2 more environmentalists are added to this group?
Do it.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the only buffoon in this assembly has just spoken. And again, Mr. Speaker, all the people on the Environmental Roundtable are environmentalists, citizens who are concerned, deeply and sincerely concerned about the environment.
Mr. Speaker, we know at least 2 that aren't. The 2 ministers in this government, Mr. Speaker. Their record speaks for itself, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, some advocate, the Albertans, are sick and tired of having to badger this minister into doing his job. The one environmentalist on the board has to call a press conference to try to get some action, Mr. Speaker. That's how fair he thinks it is. My question to the minister, doesn't the environment minister see something wrong with appointing 1 environmentalist? Does he honestly believe that this is right, just appointing 1 environmentalist to this advisory group? Is this just another case of knuckling under to the Neanderthals in the cabinet, Mr. Speaker?
Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, like yesterday, I'm going to tell the honorable member a story. I'm going to tell him a story about Rosemary Brown. Rosemary Brown has been appointed to the Roundtable on the Environment and the Economy. She's worked closely with industry and environmental groups in the proposed development of the Caroline gas field. I'm going to tell him about Dale Harbour. He was a member of the North Peace Foundation for 17 years. David Simpson operates Timber Mountain Pack Train and is a member of several wildlife foundations. Cheryl Moore is the first corporate vice president of the environment for a major oil company. Wanda Prather has taught in Alberta's public schools for 18 years and has specialized in environmental studies. Junie Weniger is chairman of the Medicine Hat Culture and Recreation Board and has been very, very active in various naturalist activities in that particular city. Doug Catran has a Bachelor of Science degree in chemical engineer and is a well-known environmentalist in the city of Calgary. Robin C. Mayer was instrumental in successfully instituting a comprehensive recycling program at the Alberta College of Art. Stan Wilson has been involved in beef cattle production.
Second main question, Leader of the Opposition.
The press release, we're all capable of reading. The point the minister admits is these environmentalists are advocates. None of these people you mentioned are, other than the one, Mr. Speaker. Now, my question, Mr. Speaker, is to the Deputy Premier, the second question. Mr. Speaker, I'm sure that the Deputy Premier, I don't like picking on the defenseless, Minister of Environment. But, Mr. Speaker, the Deputy Premier, I'm sure, along with all other people, will be tempted to breathe a huge sigh of relief now that the social workers and the correctional workers are back at the negotiating table and back to work. Mr. Speaker, however, it remains to be seen what lessons the Minister and the government have learned as a result of these strikes. Mr. Speaker, every observer of these 2 disputes, except the government and the ministers involved, has pointed to the regressive backward labor laws that forces public employees to use so-called illegal means to back up their demands. The history is clear, Mr. Speaker. 1977, Bill 41 took away the rights of public employees. The Guard struck in 1980. In 1983, Bill 44 took away the nurses' right. They struck anyhow after that, right. And of course the latest, Mr. Speaker. Now, my question to the Deputy Premier, Mr. Speaker, is will the government now, recognizing the folly of their ways, move to restore full collective bargaining rights to the people affected in the Public Service Employee Relations Act and the Labor Relations Act?
Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition, as usual, is wrong. The public sector employed by the people of Alberta through the government have never had the right to strike in this province. That's a fact. And that was improved upon, obviously, in the legislation which was brought forward in 1977, at which time a compulsory arbitration procedure was introduced and making it very clear that compulsory arbitration would be binding on both sides to any labor negotiations or dispute which ensued from it within this province. That collective bargaining process has worked effectively over the years, and in fact is working well now in regard to the negotiations underway between the public service employees or the public service administration and the Alberta Union of Provincial Employees. Several settlements have been achieved, the master agreement has been signed, and two, unfortunately, groups decided to take illegal action, and that's regrettable. But nonetheless, the procedure has worked in this province. It is not the intention of the government to change those laws when they have, in fact, worked effectively. I know what the Leader of the Opposition and the NDP want. They want to place the right to strike in the hands of public servants. But the fact of the matter is that public servants are relied upon by the people of this province to provide services throughout this province, and it's not the intention of the government to introduce the right to strike, which, I repeat, has never been the case.
Okay. Supplementary.
It's the case with the nurses, Mr. Speaker, and you know full well you were here in '83 when we took that right away.
That's right.
Mr. Speaker, surely this minister, after what's happened in this province, and I went through a history of it, can't cling to the outdated theory that these laws work, Mr. Speaker. You can't take people's rights away, Mr. Speaker, and not get them to react, and that should be proven by this government right now. Mr. Speaker, my question to the Deputy Premier is this, simply this. The laws are not fair. Everybody recognizes they're not working. Why is not enough for this government to move towards some fairness in the labor laws, Mr. Speaker?
Labor laws with respect to the public service and the government of Alberta are fair. There is a fair collective bargaining process which has worked effectively over the years. There have been very few disturbances and illegal strikes undertaken. I don't know who the Leader of the Opposition has been talking to when he says that every... Dave Whirlin.
Dave Whirlin.
That's his big... Yeah. Dave.
Please, this is not a shouting match back and forth. If other members want into the question period, stick up your hand. In the meantime, let's listen to the answers, please, as well as the questions.
Well, just to continue with my...
Thank you, Donna. Perhaps now we can continue. Is that okay? Thanks a bunch.
Well, Mr. Speaker, if I can be allowed to continue, the fact of the matter is that, as I've indicated, there has never been the right to strike in the public service in this province, never. And I don't know who the Honourable Leader of the Opposition has been talking to when he says that every person that he's talked to, or every commentator and so on, has said that we have unfair and regressive laws. The people I've spoken to, quite contrary, have said that they want the laws to work, and that is, in fact, what has taken place. I regret that people took illegal action. The fact of the matter is that suitable discussions are now underway, and for the record will show, I'm sure in the end, that a suitable collective bargaining result will appertain to this particular dispute, and in the event that there's not, a compulsory arbitration procedure which is binding on both sides, including the government, will be the ultimate decider in this particular case.
Okay. Process is rigged, and the minister knows it.
That's right.
Mr. Speaker, I know who he's talking to, Peter Pocklington, Mr. Speaker, because these laws are fair.
That's right.
Mr. Speaker, we were talking about the ILO from the United Nations, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Canada. They're the ones that said these laws are wrong, Mr. Speaker. They're the ones. And my question is that both parties in a labor dispute have to have some clout, Mr. Speaker, and that's not the case now. My question to the minister, doesn't the minister realize that by refusing to rewrite labor laws and refusing public employees and healthcare workers basic labor rights, that this government is virtually ensuring and guaranteeing, Mr. Speaker, that there will be more illegal strikes in the future, Mr. Speaker?
You bet.
Well, certainly I know that the New Democratic Party has encouraged illegal strike action.
Aided and abetted.
They have done so.
Point of order.
They have done so on the steps of this legislature within recent days.
Yeah.
And I categorically deny the accusation made by the Leader of the Opposition that I have spoken to one Peter Pocklington. That is an absolute, total falsehood. And I can assure the Honourable Leader of the Opposition that he'd better get his facts straight before he comes into this Assembly and starts making accusations. That is entirely false, Mr. Speaker, and the Leader of the Opposition should be ashamed of making entirely false statements to this Assembly. Well, the Honourable Member for Edmonton Kingsway chatters away in the back like a bird on a rail, and that's obviously to be expected from that particular member because he never listens.
Thank you. Order, please. Order. Leader of the Liberal Party, Edmonton Glengarry.
Mr. Speaker, my questions are to the Honourable Minister of the Environment. Yesterday I met with about 100 students, high school students, and we talked environmental matters at length. Today I introduced the Assembly to 9 students who are the executive of the Students' Union of a junior high school. All expressed a certain cynicism towards politicians and the environment, believing that politicians are behind the people in terms of getting things done. Mr. Speaker, they want fairness, they want openness, and they want a lot more speed in terms of issues on the environment. My first question to the minister is this. The mechanism, given that the reporting mechanism of this special round table on the environment is to report to Cabinet, and presumably that's done in secret, would the minister commit to changing that reporting mechanism to, rather than reporting in secret, reporting to a special select committee on the environment of this legislature?
Well, Mr. Speaker, that legislation is about to come before this Assembly, and I think that that's the time to debate it, not during question period. Why waste the Honourable Leader of the Liberal Party's valuable time? I'm not about to do that.
Right. Foreman said it was okay.
Well, Mr. Speaker, maybe I should be asking the neutral Minister of the Environment, because we can't seem to get anything out of the Minister of Environment anytime. Let me try again. Mr. Speaker, one of the commitments that came out of the National Task Force on the Environment and the Economy, a document that was signed by the previous Minister of the Environment, calls for the release of reports done by roundtables to the public. The reports are given to a minister or to Cabinet or select standing committees, but they are released also to the public. Will the minister commit to the commitment that his predecessor made on the signature to the report, that these reports will simultaneously be released to the public in total, not some condensed version, but in total at the same time?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the round table has yet to hold its first meeting. And I think that the Honourable Leader of the Liberal Party has a valid point, one that I will bring to the round table on the environment and the economy for consideration. I think it's valid, and I think it deserves considerable thought. Thank you.
I don't believe this. That's great. I mean, I'm delighted, Mr. Speaker, that the minister has made a decision finally. Mr. Speaker,
Question.
roundtables, according to this report that the previous minister signed, are to be committees that balance environmental matters and balance economy, balance opportunity in the economy. Mr. Speaker, it doesn't make one an environmentalist if one goes and buys tissue.
Order, please. Order. The paragraphs are getting longer. Let's have the question, please.
There are 8 people representing corporate Alberta. Will the minister agree, now that this has surfaced as a problem, to simply add some extra expertise, additional expertise from environmentalists who know and understand the environment so as to give this balance?
Fine, and I will continue my answer, Mr. Speaker. Donald R. Stanley, World Health Organization's Expert Advisory Panel on Environmental Health. D.D. Doug Baldwin, President and Chief Executive Officer of Esso Resources Canada Limited, Chairman of the Canadian Petroleum Association for the 1990-1991 term and Chairman of their Environmental Advisory Committee. Brian Stasinski.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Perhaps you'd be good enough to file a copy of the panel of makeup with the table and the chair. Member for Drumheller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Honourable Deputy Premier, and I was wondering if the Honourable Deputy Premier could advise the House as to the nature of the meeting in Ottawa today between our Premier and the Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Premier, who is en route back from Toronto, where he had held meetings yesterday with the Premier of Ontario, has been asked to meet to Ottawa to meet with the Prime Minister this evening for the purpose of discussing a method by which a resolution of the impasse that we were in with respect to the Constitutional Court of 1987 might be resolved. And during the course of that discussion, and we expect that he will be exploring with the Prime Minister the opportunities for calling a First Ministers' Conference to deal with that subject. It is, of course, on all members will be aware, a matter of great concern to Canadians that we have reached the stage where there appears to be a deadlock in these constitutional talks, and our Premier will be making every effort to persuade the Prime Minister that the First Ministers' Conference, at which time all people involved at that level can have the opportunity of putting all the issues on the table and trying to resolve them to come to an amicable solution. Make sure that our country retains its strength so that we can grow and develop and put behind us the acrimony and dispute which is now blocking constitutional change.
Mr. Speaker, can the Honourable Deputy Premier advise us as to the nature of the message our Premier will be taking to the Prime Minister as a method of getting out of this impasse?
Well, I think there are really 3 important points to be made. First of all, that we can't overload the agenda. Our Premier has made that clear here in Alberta and again in his discussions with Premier Peterson yesterday in Toronto. We cannot overload the agenda. And secondly, we cannot isolate Quebec or any other province and put them aside or away from the process. All parties, all provinces, the federal government must be participating in this process if we are to have meaningful constitutional change. That's the second point. We cannot isolate Quebec. We do not want to see that happen. And finally, I think the key to unlocking the dilemma is the question of finding a way to achieve meaningful Senate reform so that the federal Parliament operates effectively to represent the interests of the partners in Confederation in the second chamber, and that Senate reform, which Alberta has led, will be the method, be the key, which I've said before, to unlock the dilemma. And that, of course, will be a very major factor in determining whether or not it will be possible to achieve meaningful Senate reform and meaningful constitutional change. So I think really those are the three key elements of the message our Premier will be bringing the Prime Minister today.
Edmonton Jasper Place, followed by Calgary Northwest.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a letter signed by Jerry Lack, who's the Director of Standards and Approvals in the Environment Department. I won't read it. I'll table copies for all honorable members. But the key phrase is that Alberta Environment is committed to providing the public with the opportunity to have input into the licensing process, written to a resident of Peace River with regard to the Daishawa project. The Minister of the Environment has stated that he issued the license to dump 490 tons of organic chloride pollution without that community input because the province would be in a vulnerable legal position if he did not. Now, if the minister was honest about it, he would have to admit that he's talking about a potential lawsuit from Daishawa. Who else would sue for not getting a permit? Can you imagine very many Albertans downstream who would do that? And the question in the minds of Albertans is how did the government get itself into a box where it has to allow dioxin pollution because it's vulnerable to court action by a corporate polluter if it doesn't do that? And I wonder if the minister would be specific today about what contracts and what agreements oblige him to break a written commitment to Albertans on threat of legal action.
Well, first of all, there was no threat of legal action. I said that there was no reason legally or morally not to issue the permit. So there was no breach of anything. As a matter of fact, it was issued, that is the license, in the normal course of doing business. And I would repeat once again, what would you do with a pulp mill once it's built? Stand there and look at it like the socialists would? Or dismantle it to create employment like the socialists would?
Well, I'm going to call him Two-Story Ralph because he says one thing in here, he goes outside and says that the government is in a vulnerable legal position if they don't issue the permit. And the Minister of the Environment, I think, probably has very little idea of the hurt and the anger which Albertans are feeling as a result of his decision to deny them any right to be involved in decisions about licensing organic chloride pollution. I say that a government that puts the rights of polluters ahead of the rights of Albertans is a government which has lost its moral authority to govern in this province. Yesterday, the minister said that he was willing to look at biological testing of this pulp mill effluent. And I want to put it to him quite simply. If the studies show that this material causes chromosome damage, will he do the right thing and put public health ahead of the big companies that pollute?
Well, to answer his direct question first, Mr. Speaker, and then address the very, very silly prelude to the question. To answer the question, we're going to put in place, and I explained that yesterday, a review process, legislated if necessary, to monitor precisely the kinds of things the honourable member referred to. Relative to the public consultation process, and this minister's allegations that there was no public consultation, or this member, thank God he's not a minister, this member's allegations that there was no public consultation, Mr. Speaker, I would like to table, well, no, I don't want to table it because I don't want to produce more paper for the library and so on, but I'll just present it, Mr. Speaker. These represent the environmental impact assessment documents relative to the Daishawa pulp mill project. Mr. Speaker, this document alone represents the public consultation process relative to that particular project. Now, he says there was no public consultation process. Mr. Speaker, I want to simply demonstrate how this member operates and knows nothing about what he speaks. This document, Mr. Speaker, outlines the public consultation that was done. It outlines the preface to the public consultation, the preliminary information report, the public information brochure, the public call for briefings and presentations, notices for public meetings, all the meeting coverage of the public meetings, copies of all the minutes of the public meetings from Peace River to Vermilion to High Level to Weberville to Manning and so on. And he wasn't there.
Calgary Northwest, if there's time.
Here, I have been watching with cautious optimism the proposals being put forward regarding the possible, I emphasize the word possible, development of the Cormy Ranch. On May the 18th, which was just last week, there was an agreement made between the lawyers representing Don Cormy and Cormy Ranch and the lawyers representing the principal group investors that would expedite the sale and allow this development to go ahead. And recently, there's been a court injunction granted to the government regarding this particular sale, and that puts the whole sale in jeopardy. My question today is to the Minister for Tourism, because ultimately, of course, we want to see the tourism development here. Does the Minister for Tourism not agree that the potential tax revenue, just the tax revenue of a $1 billion tourism development far outweighs the possible recovery, emphasize possible recovery, of $400,000 should the government win in its injunction in the courts?
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, very definitely the project that's being proposed to be a very positive project for Alberta, and our department has had quite a number of meetings with them, and we're looking forward to the finalization of and a solution to the problems, and I hope that the lawyers can solve them.
Well, I'm pleased to hear that there have been meetings occurring. My supplementary then to the Minister, has the Minister or his department done any economic impact studies, and as opposed to environmental, economic impact studies to assess possible tax revenues and economic benefits that would result from this project, and has that information then been relayed to the Tourism Committee of the Cabinet, to the Provincial Treasurer, and to the Treasury Board?
No, Mr. Speaker, very specific study on this project has not been done, but the rules that do apply to most projects are well known amongst my colleagues, and the economic benefits for a project like this are known to Cabinet.
Red Deer North, followed by Vegreville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question today is to the Provincial Treasurer. Our bank rate, or the Canadian bank rate, has leapt to 14.05. That's represents the biggest spread between Canadian and U.S. rates that we've seen in our history. And as we all know, this central Canadian policy is having a devastating effect on our economy. As we are the only province that has done anything to alleviate the pressure for taxpayers within our province through the interest shielding program, and as we know, this program has not resulted in runaway inflation. It has not resulted in rampant price indexes, but it's resulted in growth and stability. Will the Minister please communicate to the Federal Minister of Finance the fact that this experiment works, that lower interest rates do not devastate the economy, and hopefully that communication will knock the Federal Minister off of this destructive path that he's on?
Mr. Speaker, the member from Red Deer North is accurate in his report to the Assembly this afternoon. It is with some fear that we watched the bank rate raise by 25 or 1/4 of a percentage point today, following the short-term money market up. I must say, Mr. Speaker, that the member is accurate when he says that the province of Alberta has put in place a significant number of programs which have sheltered certain sectors of our economy from this devastating impact, to quote the member, and that's in the farming community, small business community, and as well in the home ownership side. And those programs have worked very effectively. Were it not for the inflationary impact caused by taxation of the federal government on the consumption side, our inflation in Alberta would be very reasonable. We must report that investment is still being driven by the natural economic forces that are at work in Alberta. For how long this can continue under the high interest rate is questionable. I should note as well, Mr. Speaker, that the current Canadian capital market is suffering some uncertainty, essentially driven by the Meech Lake concern, and I would expect that once Meech Lake has settled down, you may well see some softening interest rates. I think that's been the general view of the market so far, and we would expect that I think all politicians and all those people involved share this concern. But if the member wants me to express my view directly to the Minister of Finance on the matters he raised, I'll be glad to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think that communication will help. My supplementary is to the Minister of Municipal Affairs. We understand he's been doing a review in terms of extension of the interest shielding program. I'd like to ask him, involved in that review, would he also consider that the program not just be given a one-year extension, but in fact a two-year extension, which allows for the type of planning that has to go on in the economic sector?
Mr. Speaker, to the honourable member, yes, the program is under review. The program has been very acceptable to this point in time by Albertans. Some 64,000 Albertans made application and were accepted, and we paid out some $13 million. In the current fiscal year, we have some $20 million budgeted, but with the high interest rate policy of the federal government, our cost of that program may increase by $40 to $70 million, which is a concern to us in terms of balancing the budget. But yes, in terms of the current situation and maybe the need in the marketplace, we are considering the extension.
Great help. Mr. Speaker, I think it's fair to say that thousands of Albertans felt betrayed yesterday when they learned that this government is clearly intending to move towards the privatization of our wildlife resource by allowing the sale of elk meat. This in spite, Mr. Speaker, of firm statements to the contrary by the Premier a year ago in the Stettler by-election and firm statements by the Minister of Forestry, Lands and Wildlife in the same regard. Now, one of the things the government's using in their glossy little package to sell this to Albertans is a statement giving firm assurance that game animal production will be prohibited on provincial Crown land and paid hunting of game production animals will continue to be forbidden. Now, given, Mr. Speaker, that the words uttered by prominent Conservatives within the last year have proved to be nothing more than hollow promises, what reason do Albertans have to believe any of the assurances given in this document about the future of paid hunting and commercialization of wildlife in the province? Wildlife, Mr. Speaker.
Well, Mr. Speaker, first of all, we're not privatizing the wildlife in this province. We've had game farms in this province for many, many years, and what is said in the press release and in the documents is absolutely accurate. There will be no game farming or game ranching on Crown land, and there will be no paid hunting. And the proof in that is that it's brought forward to this House and will be debated here in a bill, and that is part of that legislation.
In other words, it's not going to happen until you bring forward another bill next year and make the changes. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask the Minister of Agriculture a question. Given the fact that this is good news for the 120 people that raise elk for profit in the province of Alberta, but there are thousands of Albertans who are very concerned about the commercialization of wildlife and who want to have their views heard, will the Minister agree to suspend debate of this bill in the legislature until we've had full opportunity for a legitimate environmental impact assessment of game ranching in the province of Alberta that allows legitimate public hearings on this important issue?
Hear, hear. Mr. Speaker, the introduction of Bill 31 is good news for anyone that believes in diversification in agriculture, our number one industry. And I'm very disappointed that the Ag Critic with the ND party is not supportive of diversification. I think it's plain that what we're talking about here is an industry that has been around for some time, as the Honourable Minister of Forestry, Lands and Wildlife explained, the natural evolution of that industry, the raising of livestock that is very environmentally friendly to the province of Alberta, native to the province of Alberta, native to the environment, is going to be carried out on deeded land and is not going to build its numbers up from the wild.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, for some time now it's become increasingly clear. Mr. Speaker.
Member Baggerville and Minister of Agriculture, perhaps you can continue discussion outside. You've already had your chance here in the last few minutes. Edmonton Meadowlark.
Go ahead. Go do it.
Punch it up there.
Do it. Be memorable.
Members, you can wait, count light bulbs that have been burned out if you want. Edmonton Meadowlark, please begin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, for some time now it's become increasingly clear that the Minister of the Environment has been rendered powerless to fulfill his mandate. If ever there was any doubt about this, he dispelled it himself earlier this week when he stated that he simply didn't have the power to set up a public review process of the Dayashawa licensing application, even though it had been his intention to do such a process exactly as he had done it with Procter & Gamble. To the newly admitted minister without portfolio, will the minister admit, yes or no, that he failed to set up a public review of the Dayashawa application because he was afraid that he would be sued by Dayashawa if he did, and he didn't have the support within cabinet, the support from his premier, to withstand that possibility?
Mr. Speaker, that question is so dumb it's impossible to answer.
Right. But it's slippery. Certainly not impossible to evade it, is it, Ralph? Does this minister not understand that he has an obligation to exercise his responsibility under the Clean Air and Clean Water Act, regardless of whether or not mistaken promises in the past made by this government may mean that he will be sued if he does?
Mr. Speaker, the Procter & Gamble situation was an experiment, and there was concurrence on the part of the company. The fact is, we do not now have legislative authority to set in place a formalized review process for the renewal of licenses. What I've tried to explain to this honorable member, Mr. Speaker, is that in the new Environmental Protection and Enhancement Act, we propose to bring in legislation which will allow for that kind of formalized review to take place. I would simply ask the honorable member to be patient.
Calgary Fish Creek, followed by Calgary Forest Lawn.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to address a question this afternoon to the Minister of Municipal Affairs regarding the Local Authorities Board denial of the City of Calgary's Springbank annexation application earlier this year. And I'm wondering if the Minister has been advised as to whether or not the City of Calgary will be, in fact, appealing the LAB decision or possibly considering a new application.
Mr. Speaker, at present, I haven't had any indication from the City of Calgary. I have a meeting set up with the City of Calgary and the MD of Rocky View on June the 14th at 10 a.m., at which time we'll be discussing the various options with regards to the annexation. The matter would not be appealed. The city would have the right to set up a new application to the Local Authorities Board.
Well, Mr. Speaker, given the intensity of feelings on both sides of the annexation question, can the Minister indicate to the Assembly this afternoon what steps he'd be prepared to take to ensure that a renewed application would in fact be given a fair and balanced hearing?
Mr. Speaker, what my intention is to, and I have contacted the various parties that are involved in these set of circumstances, re the annexation of part of Springbank. And my intent is to meet with the city, with the municipal district, and as well two of the interest groups, the Western Hills Landowners Group and the Springbank Residents and Landowners Association, and discuss what the options are, so that prior to the hearings taking place that we will have a better understanding, and if an application can be approved or disapproved, that we do it in a more responsible and mature approach.
Calgary Forest Lawn.
Mr. Speaker, the Highwood River's role as a spawning stream is absolutely essential to the world-famous trout fishery on the Bow River downstream from Calgary. In recent years, fish kills in the Highwood caused by excessive withdrawals of water have become common occurrence. The government is aware that both Trout Unlimited and the Fish and Game Association want minimum flows of 150 cubic feet per second to be maintained for the 1990 operating year, that is downstream from the town of High River. My question to the Minister of the Environment is quite straightforward. Given the need to protect the Highwood River as a trout spawning stream, will the Minister agree to increase minimum allowable in-stream flows from 70 cubic feet per second to 150 cubic feet per second for this operating season?
Mr. Speaker, this is a real difficult situation, and involves a supply of water to those people involved in agricultural endeavors on the Little Bow, and it involves the sustainability of the lower Highwood River. And the problem we're trying to come to grips with is how do we capture the flush so that we can fill the Little Bow Reservoir and not have a constant drain on the Highwood River. Basically, I've said that the 1989 guidelines will apply until the river becomes stressed or there are signs that the river is becoming stressed. Then we will take measures to reduce that stress. And what we've done is we've installed at Alderside and just outside High River some of the most sophisticated monitoring equipment available that will give the citizens of that region immediate access to the flow of the river, and will tell our officials also whether or not that river is becoming stressed. If it is stressed and we feel that wildlife and fish are in danger, then we will take whatever measures are necessary to alleviate the problem.
Well, Mr. Speaker, at a so-called stockholders meeting, or pardon me, stakeholders meeting last night in High River, officials, they were mostly stockholders, and that was true. Officials from the Minister's Department refused to commit themselves to maintaining minimum flows in the Highwood River during this operating season. Instead, they proposed some vague corrective measures should oxygen levels fall too low, and I think that's essentially what the Minister is saying to us today. But my question to the Minister is, given that there have been all these documented fish kills in the Highwood in 5 of the last 10 years, will the Minister not now put a halt to withdrawals of water when the flow drops before this suggested 150 cubic feet per second, which is needed to protect the stream?
Good idea.
And it is a good idea in the minds of some. In the minds of others, it's not a good idea. The whole idea is to assess what is an appropriate inflow requirement for the lower Highwood. And what we're trying to do now is to bring together all the parties, all the stakeholders, as the honourable member suggests, together to decide what a proper inflow level is. That consensus has been, well, it's been a bit of a nightmare. I mean, there's been a bit of a war down there. It's like the Hatfield and the McCoys. And basically, I've had to say that we'll use common sense until we can come to some consensus relative to an inflow requirement, and until that consensus is reached, we will have to use our best judgment as the Department of the Environment to determine when indeed the river becomes stressed.
Time for question period has expired. However, the Minister of the Environment has supplementary information to give the member for Edmonton Jasper. Excuse me. Forgive me, Honourable. Okay, order, please, Honourable Minister. With respect to a question raised by the member for Edmonton Jasper Place. Minister of the Environment, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, the honourable member for Jasper Place put this question. I wonder if the minister would now care to stand up and name just one environment minister anywhere else in the world who has licensed a new source of dioxin pollution this year. Name one. Well, Mr. Speaker, no minister, technically speaking, issues the permit. But if he's talking about government authorities that have issued permits this year, I would like to name them. Weyerhaeuser Company, Columbus, Mississippi, 325,000 air-dried tons a year, a brand new mill, all bleachcraft. Bowater Incorporation, Calhoun, Tennessee, 1990, 285,000 air-dried tons per year, a new mill which replaces a semi-bleachcraft plant. Parsons and Whitmore Incorporated, Claiborne, Alabama, 445,000 air-dried tons per year, new mill. Stone Container, Port Wentworth, Georgia, 240,000 air-dried tons per year. Union Camp Corporation, Eastover, South Carolina, 95,000 air-dried tons per year. Repap, the PA Manitoba, 180,000 air-dried tons per year. Howe Sound, Port Mellon.
Thank you. Order, please, Honorable Minister. 5 examples seem to be sufficient for the moment. 5. Edmonton Jasper, please.
Well, the minister is delighted to place himself in the apparent company of Mississippi, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, Manitoba. Conservative government. My question is a simple one. Why is he not prepared to allow Albertans to have their say in this matter before he issues those licenses?
He can have this, Mr. Speaker. It's a document that outlines in full detail the public consultation that took place relative to the Daishoa pulp mill. It's good reading, good public comment, good public involvement, the kind of thing the honourable member likes and appreciates. He should read it, and missed it.
Thank you. Before we get on to a point of order, first might we revert briefly to the introduction of special guests? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. In this order, Drumheller, Calgary-Milliken, Three Hills.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my very great pleasure this afternoon to introduce to you and through you to the members of the Assembly, 32 bright, enthusiastic, and inquiring students from the St. Anthony School in Drumheller. They're accompanied by their teacher, Jerry Hamilton, parents Bob Repas, Pearl Pugh, Debbie Chenor, Louise Lynch, Pinky Molyneux, and their bus driver, Tim Harrison. They're seated in the members and public galleries, and I'd ask that they rise and receive the traditional warm welcome of this Assembly.
Calgary-Milliken.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm really delighted today to introduce to you and through you to the legislature 46 young people who just arrived just a few minutes ago in from Calgary to catch the tail end of this question period. And this is the concert band from one of Alberta's finest community schools, Sherwood Community School. And they're accompanied by a couple of their teachers, Sarah Drew and Cheryl Backey. One of the parents came along, Gordy Berberich. And the other, it doesn't say about it, but he's the bus driver, Ray Raymond. And they're sitting in the public gallery, and I'd like to see them rise and receive a warm welcome to the legislature.
Three Hills.
Mr. Speaker, it's my privilege today to introduce a group of 28 grade 10 students from the Bicycle Community School. They're going to have, I think, a lot of fun because they're spending 2 days in this area. They are accompanied by teachers Debbie Anderson and Doug McCullough, parents Val Tudor and Norm Medley. And I'd like them all to rise and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly.
Edmonton Highlands, point of order.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I believe I heard the Honourable Deputy Premier say earlier today in question period in response to questions posed by the Leader of the Official Opposition that either, and I do not have the blues, either he, the Leader of the Official Opposition, or members of the Official Opposition were, in his opinion, encouraging illegal strikes or strike action. I believe he would acknowledge that he said words to those effect. Now, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to point out 2 citations I think are vitally important in this context, one being Standing Order 23I and J, and the other being Beauchesne's citation 484 sub 3, all of which deal with generally imputing false or unavowed motives or using abusive or insulting language of a nature likely to create disorder. It's an unfortunate assignment of the honourable member's assumptions, I think, to the official opposition leader. And I'd like to point out, Mr. Speaker, that in your ruling on pages 1112 and 1113, dated May 9th, 1990, with respect to point of order called on a similar issue related to comments made in question period, that you acknowledge that the type of complaint fell within what you agreed to be a legitimate criticism, and advised all members that language should be temperate and worthy of the institution. You went on to say a number of other things in the context. Mr. Speaker, the point is basically that you pointed out that allegations against another member and abusive and insulting language of a nature likely to create disorder are cause for concern and a ruling. And in this context, I would expect the Deputy Premier would, of course, know full well what it was that he was saying, and you, Mr. Speaker, to make a ruling on whether or not the comment should be withdrawn. Thank you.
If I may briefly speak to the point of order, all I did was cite the facts. The facts were that during the course of the illegal strike, members of the New Democratic Party spoke to the strikers, encouraged them in their action to continue doing what they were doing. Carried signs, came into the assembly. In the course of question period, well, the honorable leader, House Leader for the New Democratic Party should go back into Hansard and reflect upon the nature of questions that were asked during the course of that illegal strike.
Deputy Premier knows full well that he made an allegation that is unsubstantiated and assigned unavowed motives, and I ask the Honourable Premier to withdraw.
Order, please. Order in the whole House. The exact statement from Hansard was this: Deputy Premier, while certainly I know that the New Democratic Party has encouraged illegal strike action. Honourable members, this has got to stop. When the chair is standing, let's have a chance to at least hear what's going on without being harassed by members in this House. The chair invites all honourable members to examine the blues themselves, and the matter will be dealt with tomorrow. Orders of the day.
Written.